Hi everyone, my name is Jade and welcome to Learn Business with Jade, the channel where I share all of the things I've learned through trial and error while building my tall fashion brand, Rosanna London. Today I'll be talking about the garment development process. So I'm sharing this information because I had a misconception that essentially to create a garment it was design, garment. Like I didn't think there was anything in between. I'd give a manufacturer a design, he'd look at it, he'd know what to do, and then I'd get a sample. Maybe that I'd get a sample, that's probably a maximum. I'd get a sample, approve it, go into production. There's a lot in between. Now, for those of you that don't know, I didn't study fashion or anything like that at university. Everything I've learned is through many mistakes, a lot also successes, and our best friend out there, Google. So yeah, let's get right into the video. Also, if you see me looking down any of my videos, I've got notes on over here so I don't ramble too much, so don't be alarmed if I'm looking down. But step number one is inspiration. Essentially, I guess this must be the easiest step. If you're trying to start a fashion brand, I'm assuming you have some kind of creativity behind you, or at least a vague idea of what you want to create. So the inspiration stage is usually, from my experience, driven by two things. Either you're like a vague, what's the word, conceptual, not conceptual, but like you get inspiration. For example, you'll see a tree and be like, wow, a dress, oh great. And if you're that kind of person, oh my days, love that. I can kind of get more colours, but I'm not really like that. Or you might do it seasonally. So for example, autumn winter's coming up, I'm thinking I want to design a coat. I might have a look at, so when you think of winter coats, what do you think of, Jade? I might say a fur coat, a leather coat, faux fur of course, this kind of thing, and that's how I get my inspiration. But essentially you need to have an idea, and everyone loves a mood board. Go on Pinterest, search, like just collect all the ideas together onto one page or one document. I personally prefer physical mood boards, so I'll literally print everything out and put it on a piece of paper with I just roll sellotape on the back and stick it. That's how I prefer mood boards, and then I'll stick sellotape over the top when I'm happy. Some people prefer Pinterest boards, some people like doing mood boards in like PowerPoint or Word or something, kind of electronic ones. But it was really good to have all your ideas in one place, and then you'll be able to see like commonalities with like colours or fabrics or design, I don't know, but have some kind of inspiration. That's for step number one. Step number two is a sketch. Now, if you're like super artistic, and I 110% envy you, and you can sketch amazingly, sketches like this or like this, then wow, well done. If however you are like me, your sketch will look something more like this. Now, as you can see on the sketch I've just shown you, that's for my Sarai dress that end up looking like this. But that sketch, as you can see on the side, I've got annotations because my drawing didn't make any sense to the manufacturer. It didn't make sense to anyone apart from me, to be honest. Now, moving forward, I actually ended up contacting a graphic designer, and she made more realistic sketches for me, like computerized, which is always a good step. But if you don't have any money, essentially, top tip, sketch what you can, put annotations around the side, and also either take a photo or scan your crappy sketch, let's be honest, onto the computer, and then find little elements from other dresses or other pieces and put it around to like say what you mean. For example, you might draw, like me, a ruffle, like a zigzag, and then I'll just put an arrow and say ruffle, and I'll put a photo of what I mean. And then I might mean kind of the neckline should be straight across, or should it be sweetheart. If I'm drawing a sweetheart that looks too deep, it's actually not actually what I mean, then I'll put a photo there as well. The length as well, I'll just write mid-thigh, but keep in mind I'm designing for exclusively for tall women. So mid-thigh for the average woman versus mid-thigh for a tall woman, something different altogether. So all these kind of things, just try your best to make sure this sketch is as, what's the word? As close to what is going to look like in real life as possible. Now, if you're making the pieces yourself, it's probably a bit easier because you actually have a vision, a clear photo in your mind. But if you're working with a manufacturer or seamstress or someone else, a third party is making your pieces, then it's really, really important that the sketch is as close as possible to a real garment. Look as close as possible looking as to a real garment. Hope this is making a bit of sense. Step number 3 is fabric. Now, step 1, 2 and 3 are all interlinked because, for example, when you're designing, you would have a fit in mind, and fit and fabric go hand in hand. As I mentioned in the fabric, how to shop for fabric video, because as I said previously, if you're going for a bodycon dress, then you're going to need some kind of material that is not, for example, denim. If you're going for, well, pure denim anyway, you need some kind of stretchy material. If you're designing swimwear, you need to think of swimwear material. Like, these kind of things will be in your mind as you're designing anyway. Similarly, as I said in the fabric shopping video, you may actually go to a fabric shop to get inspiration, and therefore step 1, 2 and 3 all kind of interlink regarding the general idea of the garment. But essentially step 3 is when you're going to finalize the fabric. Now, as I mentioned in the fabric shopping video, fabric availability and that kind of thing is really important, and it's very important at this stage as well of the garment development process, because as I said previously, if you look for fabric, you find it, you fall in love, and you don't check the stock availability, and you go back after going through the whole process, you're now waiting for production, and it's like, oh, the fabric is gone forever, you've now wasted your whole time. So just keep that in mind. But I will link the fabric how to shop for fabric video. You want to have a look at that to kind of get more information. Step number 4 is tech packs. Now, if you're making the pieces yourself, you can skip this because it's not super important for you. Also, if you're working with a manufacturer, a lot of the times they can offer this service for you, so you don't have to really worry about that. Now, funnily enough, as I've said in previous videos, I've worked with 3 different manufacturers and I haven't used a tech pack once. I'm not really sure why. I mentioned to them, I was like, okay, let's get a tech pack made. They said you can pay extra, but they don't think I really need it. So yeah. Now, keep in mind that currently I've only worked with small manufacturers, so I guess that's one of the benefits, that they don't have millions and millions and millions and millions of pieces going out a week. So I guess maybe that's just worked for them. But personally, I haven't needed rather to use a tech pack, so I'm not the best person to ask. But have a Google, talk to your manufacturers, see what services they offer. As I mentioned in my manufacturers video, find out what additional services they offer, because they probably do offer that kind of service if they offer pattern making. Now, talking about patterns, step number 5 is patterns and pattern making. Pattern making is an art and a skill that I personally don't have, and people actually go to, like, they get educated in pattern making and pattern cutting. So this is the part that I wouldn't skimp on personally. But again, if you're making it yourself, no, actually that's a lie. You need to have a pattern, because a pattern ensures that every single size is the same. So for example, every single size 12 fits exactly the same, and there's no kind of differences. Every single size 10, every single size 20, so on and so forth. So patterns are essential. This isn't a skip your manufacturing yourself kind of thing. Patterns are essential. If you're making custom, I guess you don't need a pattern, but still patterns are essential. Now, a pattern, as kind of definition, if you don't know what a pattern is, it's a template from which the parts of a garment are traced onto fabric before being cut out and assembled. That should make sense. Literally, it's a piece of paper, trace around it, and it's a jigsaw puzzle. It creates a jigsaw puzzle of fabric that you sew together to make a garment. Cool. So after pattern, you have step number 6, which are toils. Toils, toilies, I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't actually know anyone that actually knows how to pronounce it. But essentially, I guess someone must do. Anyway, essentially a toil or whatever is a sample of the sample. It's made in a similar weighted fabric and similar stretch fabric as the final fabric, just cheap one to avoid waste. Kind of non-stretch fabrics are made usually, toils are usually made from like muslin, I think that's how you pronounce it. Just a cheap and cheerful, but at least you can see it in real life. And then this is where you kind of try to adjust the fit and you adjust the pattern accordingly. Again, if you make any changes to the toils, you have to make those changes on the patterns. Otherwise, every single adjustment, every single improvement you've made won't translate into the final piece at the end. This is also really important, that if you kind of go to manufacturer and you make changes, make sure they make the changes on the patterns as well. They really should, but just as I said, even when you work on third parties, it's really important that you kind of stay on top of everything and oversee everything. Not necessarily micromanaging, but ultimately this is your brand, this is your baby. It's important that you actually know what's going on. Step number 7 is the fit sample. The fit sample is the first sample made in the final fabric. So for example, if you're using Duchess satin, if you're using leather or faux leather, if you're using faux fur, at this point it will actually be made in that fabric. This is the first chance you get to see what the final product could look like. At this point, again, adjustments could be made, because as much as the Toil is made in kind of a fabric that is similar, it's still not the exact same fabric, and a thick material like muslin is not the same as Duchess satin. It's not the same as leather, because it could be the same. So muslin, as it's a thick non-stretch fabric, will often be used for a number of, as a replacement or as a substitute for a number of non-stretch fabrics, but it doesn't mean that it's going to react exactly the same. So for example, for my most recent piece, which I talk about all the time, the Sarai dress, the ruffles at the bottom were a lot tighter, were able to be made a lot tighter on the Toil, but when we did it in Duchess satin, it just looked really messy and bulky because it's just a lot thicker. And I think also the sheen on the satin that you don't have on the Toil fabric, just it didn't look as great. So the first sample, the fit sample, is where you get to kind of like tweak all these bits and bobs. Now this sample step is actually kind of multiple iterations here. It will literally be sample amendment, sample amendment, sample amendment, sample amendment, until you get it perfect. You have to be 110% happy with this fit sample, or the fit sample, second sample, third sample, so on and so forth, because once it goes into production, this is what it's going to end up looking like. This is what they're going to be looking at as a replica for what you're going to get in the end. So it's so important you're 110% happy with the sample. And number 8, the final step, is production / the final garment. This is the point where name tags, wash care labels, the hangy things you put on dresses, what are they called? I put them in hanger loops. I wrote it down. Hanger loops. This is when these are all added, because you don't really need your name label in your sample. You don't need wash care labels in your sample. You don't need all the kind of little bits and bobs that add to the garment and the finishing touches when it's just a sample, because unless you have a sample sale, these pieces are actually not going to be sold and no one's really going to see them, apart maybe like a photo shoot, something like that. So you don't really need to worry about those. But at this point, this is when the final product is going to be going out. Now, 2 things. If you're working with a manufacturer, at this point, when you get the pieces, please do quality control. Have a look for any hanging threads, have a look for any labels that might be upside down, have a look for any kind of issues that you may have, and send that back immediately. This is why a pre-order system has pros and cons, which I'll talk about in another video, but often you don't get this time period, or this flexible time period, I guess, to give you time to actually do this quality control when you're doing a pre-order system. So it's really important. Essentially, quality control is really important. Now, if you're making the pieces yourself, quality control is equally as important, but I guess you can just do it piece by piece as you're making piece by piece. Whereas when you're working with a manufacturer, you get everything at once, you look through all of it. So that's just really important. If you're doing a made to order system with a manufacturer, i.e. your minimum order is 1 and you buy 1, again, just check it before it goes out. Regardless of whether you're making it yourself or using a third party, quality control is really important for customer satisfaction, and therefore the all important repeat customers. But yeah, those are the 8 steps. I hope you found that super useful. As per usual, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. I always say us. Follow me and my journey on Instagram at Learn Business with Jade. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and share with anyone you might think will find it useful. But yeah, and I will see you next week. Bye.